Hello! It's the most 90210 time of the year. And Charles,
a meeting here?
Pete,
I really am a Claire.
and Larry want to celebrate with you as the Beverly Hills 90210 show brings you the Christmas party. First off, we're going to be talking about Steve Sanders going to find his birth mother with...
I'm Steve.
That's right. Ian Ziering, a.k.a. Steve Sanders himself, will be with us to talk about his compelling Christmas storyline in Walsh Family Christmas. And if that's not enough, joining the party will be...
I just want to make it clear, they did not learn this in honors English.
Mark Tiley, a.k.a. Gil freaking Myers. Plus, leading us in some tunes will be none other than Jamie Walters. To top that off, Mrs. Teasley, a.k.a. Denise Dowse, will be joining us. And of course, no holiday party will be complete without a visit from the Walshes. Plus, you know by now, anything and everyone is possible. Join us Wednesday night, December 23rd from 5 to 7 p.m. Pacific, 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern, live at Beverly Hills 90210show.com. It's the most wonderful zip code of all time. Seriously.
Winter, spring, summer, fall, seasons change, we still keep it together.
Hey Beverly Hills 90210 fans, are you ready to dive deep, episode by episode, storyline by storyline, character by character, as we break down the making of your favorite zip code, with your hosts, Charles Rosin.
Did I say that?
Larry
This
Mollin.
heinous thing about the real person, and we're going, what? We're getting rid of this guy.
Pete Ferriero.
I'm feeling wonderful. Kathleen looks TV crush-worthy.
Like so many special guests. And all your questions. Live on the Beverly Hills 90210 show. Oh, yeah. Everybody dance now.
Well, here we are. That was a big intro this week.
Yeah, double intro. I would
wow.
like to refer to it as a super deluxe. It's not just the Christmas party. That just sounds just too bare bones. This is a super deluxe Christmas party.
It is the super deluxe Christmas party. I mean, you've heard
it.
Supersized,
certainly.
Ian Ziering coming on to talk about that incredible storyline that you guys wrote for him. Chuck and Karen, I think, wrote that one together. So that's going to be really awesome. And then, Jamie Walters coming to sing some songs. I mean, the Walshes. It's just going to be. And how about Gil Myers? I mean, we haven't seen Gil Myers in so long, Chuck.
If you tell Gil Myers that there's going to be some chestnuts roasting on an open fire, he's going to show up. There's no question about that.
Well, all right, let's bring on our guests and get into this. This is going to be a lot of fun. Okay, first off, we got to bring on Kari Wurher because, Ariel Hunter is in the house. I also want to bring on Maggie.
Disruptor.
Yeah. I actually want to start with Maggie about this storyline. I know that's really odd, but Maggie is a super fan, and she's on our Patreon, and she's always talking about David Silver. She can't stop talking about Brian. She's slightly obsessed with him. So I guess what I wanted to know for you is when you saw this storyline, what were some of your initial thoughts that you were thinking about when you saw them throw this curveball?
I was like, I knew it. Like, I already knew from the carnival. And I was like, I knew it.
Yeah.
But
why else was Ariel in the picture?
Right.
I mean, not necessarily he was going to make love to her, though. You didn't expect to see that in the limo.
Right. No.
Yeah.
But
Maggie may have. Come on, Maggie. Did you think it would be a limo?
I knew before the limo, after the hot dog.
We're gonna get more into this with you. Okay, but welcome Kari to the show. I want to know, Kari. Well, first off, to Chuck and Larry. Donna and David is such a significant thing here on the show. When did you know that this was going to be the time to have a disruptor show up?
We were pulling off all the stops now.
Yeah.
We were breaking this one up, and we were putting these together, and we're creating these complications, and we're stealing money. Everything's going to be topsy-turvy. They got to be in the mix, too. And it just seemed very natural. David and was going to be very involved with Babyface, and that actually happened the episode before this one. And Kara, I think we were in that one and setting up, and the idea of the music, particularly, well, I was going to say particularly in the early '90s. That's not true. You go back from that to the '60s, and LA was just this music town, and
right.
So everybody seemed to be in development of this or that, and that kind of connector. And it really was, and it permeated the characters of David Silver and Steve Sanders from the Beach Club days.
Maggie, let me ask you this, Maggie, if you had an opportunity to talk to David in that time and this had happened to you, what would you have said to David at that time?
If I was Ariel or Donna?
If you were Donna, what would you have said?
I would have said,
what would you say to him?
Whoa.
How could you?
I'm listening. Hi, Maggie. Hi, Kari. How are you?
Hey, Brian.
Hey, Brian.
Good,
I knew you were going to do this.
You have to do that.
You are so
To do this.
you look so good.
Maggie, I always mess with you. Kari, I haven't seen you in forever. My God.
I know. You look amazing.
Thank you very much.
Even better than that. Men just get better looking, and women just get like,
Well, I wouldn't say that.
That's not
True at all. To that. Both go in both directions.
I think, Kari, you look incredible. Yeah.
I'm in agreement on that.
Kari I had such a huge crush on Kari when we shot the episode. I mean, what a great actress for David to lose his virginity.
Exactly.
Awesome.
And for
really was.
It was a pleasure.
She was fantastic.
I had hate mail.
I have a question. Kari, did you wear that fringe jacket into the audition?
Yeah, I think so. It was my.
I thought so too. I remember being at the audition because I wrote the episode before, and I remember that fringe. I said, "Yes, we told her yes, and bring the fringe jacket."
Yeah, I had a huge collection of vintage, 60s leather jackets and stuff like that back then. It was a long time ago.
Well, I just finished watching it again, and what I really liked was in that big confrontation scene that Donna had with you, right? And she says, "Was this the first time?" And you have to cop to, "No, we did it before." Like there was another in the last episode or other that this was. It was like it was premeditated, so it was really, it wasn't the spontaneous argument goes out.
You know what's really funny too, like for fans of the show that thought like, that still give me a hard time, like, oh, I can't believe David cheated on Donna. Kari knows, like, the setup of that scene, like the placement of the condom wrapper and the whole, it was such a big deal shooting that. Like we were micromanaged on the shoot of that scene because it meant so much to so many people. It was really, everyone made sure that what they saw on the monitor was exactly the way they wanted it to be. So it was, as much as it seemed steamy and crazy to watch, there was so much going on in making that. There was nothing fun about it other than making out with Kari in the back seat of a limo.
We just spent the whole time in the back of this limo. It was kind of like real life, right, Brian?
Oh,
it was so nice.
I remember it was a big deal for us that it wasn't going to be your first time, and so I remember we really talked about that because also it wasn't going to be great sex and it was going to be kind of rushed. So it was really made a lot more sense to have you say to Donna and Cop 2. I think you say to her, no, but only with her or something like that. So we really nail it. And that plays pretty well. And and also the placement of your décolletage is pretty cool too. You're kind of loose, pretty racy for 8 o'clock. I mean, geez, I remember my sons just went like this. Like, just for the TV.
Yeah.
Hey, we're in college.
Anything goes, VHS was so jittery at the time. You couldn't really see much.
Do you have any questions for Brian in general or about this episode that you would like to know?
No, I don't know.
Maggie, how have you been?
Good.
Good to see you.
Nice to see you too.
How fast is your heart beating, Maggie?
Let me get a drink. Hold on. I have my drink.
So I've messed with Maggie now a couple times. We had a fundraiser that she was gracious enough to buy a ticket for, and she was a part of, and it was a ask me a question thing, and of course she didn't have much of anything to ask me.
Liar.
But it was. But I just hit her on Instagram before that, at which point she was like, she didn't believe it was me. So it was good. Yeah. So it was good messing with her on that, and it's good messing with her on this.
It's always good messing with Maggie. Yes,
it really is. Maggie's a good person to.
I get a lot of hackers, and I'm like, this isn't you. So.
Before you take off, Brian, the vegetable garden, all good?
Yeah, the chickens and everything. Yeah.
Chickens are great. Vegetable garden is under construction currently.
Yeah, I saw that in incredible film that you made at the on Instagram at the
at the lumberyard.
Yeah, the lumberyard.
People gave me a hard time, but I told people because the one previous I did my live from the car wash in Malibu. So I was like, I'm just going to take you guys on a tour of Malibu during doing these lives. So I said maybe the next one will be at the hardware store or whatever. And so I knew I was going there, and I was like, I should just do a live while I'm here. So I walked around, and people saw lumber and plants, and it was glorious.
Yeah. Hey,
I felt good about myself.
You do got something really cool coming out, though, that everybody's really excited about, the masked dancer thing.
Masked dancer, yeah.
Yeah, I saw that promo. That was great. I was happy to see you on that, Brian.
It's really cool. It's fun. You know what? It's nice to do something that's as positive as the masked universe seems to be. Like we don't judge people. We're not watching technique. We're not giving people criticism if they do something incorrectly. It's all about just praising everyone that's there for having fun and allowing families to sit at home like us and figure out who they think, who we think might be in a costume. So it's sort of, it's for entertainment. And I think we need that right now. I mean, I think, 2020 is a good year.
Big time. Hey, about this episode too, you get this awesome opportunity to do this thing with Babyface. Last time you were here, you talked a little bit about that. I mean, how incredible of an opportunity was that for you back then? Yeah, it was really cool. I remember, I think I went to you, Chuck, didn't I? Originally when you were talking about it, and I was like, hey, let's see if Kenny will do the episode. And it was
was exactly, you guys came in with the music idea, and I was open because, and when we get into talking a little bit more about the carnival, Brian, you should probably know this. Larry and I were comparing notes in part that this UCLA had this carnival every single year back where Poly Pavilion is. All the frats, all the sororities. And when you were in junior high school ages, 13, 14, 15, that is where you wanted to be. There was nothing cooler to be on a UCLA had to do with that. So, the whole scope of it. So they always had music acts. Yeah. They always had local acts. The biggest one for me who played, and it was cool because they already had songs on the radio in '66 with the Turtles. Because they were kind of a, Imagine Me and You Together and Some Girls, so they played Full and Eddie, right? So they were there, and
the Monkees, everyone was performing. It was real cool to be there.
Just the Turtles. Now the rest of the Animal Kingdom, we had them in the zoo. They would go down to SC where the money was. The Turtles.
I remember I'd been working with Kenny for a while because we were working on my album, but that was. Doing that episode of the show, that was the most time I had spent with him in a while. Like it was a real, because he was super nervous doing it. He's a pretty shy person.
Yeah, he's shy.
Yeah, super shy. Kari knows, but like he was great. He had a lot of fun, and what a cool show to have the kind of people on that we had. It's really amazing. I mean,
a few years later, after you got to do that with Babyface, I got to do that with Roger Daltrey.
Oh, really? Wow. That's so awesome.
So I did like the arc of episodes with little tiny Roger Daltrey.
What show was that?
Vegetarianism.
What was that for?
Sliders.
Wow.
Oh, yeah. Sliders are cool.
Lisa says, I'm so jelly of Bags and Mags. They are going to be on TMZ next. Okay, let's hope for Maggie. I went to Jill Henkel's house today. Do you know who that is, Brian? I'm sure you remember Jill. The set dresser.
She was your head of set that. She was the crew.
Anyway, she gave me all these really cool pictures from back in the day of the sets, and you remember this place, right?
yeah. It was much like the Millennium Falcon. Like none of the switches worked. It was very old school.
So antiquated now. You look at that, my God.
Yeah. It's like, what is that made of aluminum? They stopped using aluminum years ago.
I think she gave me this one too. Remember this? This is when you and Claire go searching for aliens. If you remember.
Oh yeah. That was the truck stop in like Barstow.
That's very cool.
With the little seats.
That was Jason and I drove there. We had Defender 90s at the time, and we drove those specifically because we were pretty sure that most of the crew trucks would get stuck in the sand, and they did. And so they ended up using our Defenders in the sand to get equipment from set to base camp.
Oh, cool. Amazing. Yeah. Brian, working with Kari all those years ago, all good memories and whatnot.
Totally. I've known Kari forever. I knew her. We knew each other before she did the show. And we haven't talked in a while, but she's awesome. You're awesome. It's so fucking nice to see you. It really is.
You too, Brian. Been back a lot lately, actually.
How about for you, Kari, working with Brian and coming into that universe at that time?
I always had this thing when I was young that I was always a little bit embarrassed maybe of my light shining, you know what I mean? Because I have a lot of like, hello, and I was afraid of the girls a little bit. Not of them like, coming after me, but like I just didn't want to step on anybody's.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's their show. It was their moment. And so I never really had a lot of interaction except with Tori, but the boys were like on the show. Were so great. I went on to work with, them after the show and things. And I think that was like, I would bet if I had a nickel, time I heard somebody say this, but I think that the boys probably were the glue of that entire operation, huh, Brian?
Sure.
I just want to say we've got about 43 of these now, and you're the 43rd person to actually say something along those lines. The guys, it is true, Brian. Whether it would be you, people talking, it doesn't matter which one of you four guys they bring up. It's like that was so friendly. He was so friendly. He was so friendly. He was so friendly. Oh, how were the women? It was just a different way of interacting with people.
Right, the women were magical. I don't know what you're talking about.
Right. Yeah, that's what I've heard too. What are you talking about? Yeah,
Tori was great. I never got a chance to really know the other girls. That's all I'm saying.
Well, anyway, Kari, but working with Brian, we're speaking specifically working with Brian. All good memories.
Very good kisser.
Oh.
It was really cool.
I have to say one thing. We made her eat a hot dog. Which I looked at. Chuck, what did you think of that scene when we watched her? And then Donna goes back to, I think it's, who does she talk to at that point?
I think Brenda.
I just watched Ariel eat a hot dog in front of me.
Yeah. I was told to turn it down when I did that.
Yeah.
They were like,
I was proud of us. We did that, Chuck, but I have to tell you. But
I was too.
She was like Will Ferrell with more cowbell. Right now it was like more hot dog. And then, and then all of a sudden people were like, okay, that's enough hot dog. Thank you, Kari.
Yeah.
Thank you for doing that. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
I want to deep throat it, but they were like,
yeah, that probably wouldn't have worked.
No. We were riding a real, that was amazing to get that stuff.
That probably would have ended up on the cutting room floor.
No, he was Michael Lange. Unfortunately, had a conflict, but we would have called him a killjoy right now if he was sitting here. That. It was a moment to have. And But
Hey, our friend Jessica Klein just joined us. Jessica, hey, how are you?
Hi.
Hey,
We didn't
Jessica
script
Klein.
the hot dog that way, but hi, Brian. Hi,
How are
Kari.
you?
I know, Jessica, you haven't had a chance to see Brian on one of these, I don't think. Do you have any great memories of working with Brian all those years ago?
Young Brian, you mean?
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
Young Squire.
Little one. Yeah.
Young Brian, who we watched grow up before our very eyes and turned into a hottie. Yeah, Brian was great. Brian really put up with the way we made fun of him until he grew up, and then
I didn't really have much of a choice.
The lines
I
were written.
was growing.
we wrote those
and
lines,
so
and we gave you that stuff to do. But what always blew us away was his level of commitment. I mean, we made Brian. Brian is a beautiful dancer as well as a terrific musician, and it was on the dance floor that we really first got to see him come out of turn into a hunk. He just did it, and it was just so fast.
Well, you know what they say: if you feel it, dance it. And so
there you go.
I did.
And we had other people who didn't want to, so it was particularly nice that you did. And you sold the romance with Donna, and both in its highs and lows, and it was great. And then Brian did some really serious drama with all the drug stuff. That was
it went on.
Really,
and on.
Really good.
You're such a gifted performer.
You went through lots of different emotional highs and lows and delivered every time. And Brian and I ran into each other at an airport at LAX right before you did the reboot. Yeah. And it was so wonderful to see you, and it's great to see you here. You look fabulous. You've grown into quite the stud. And you're a really good actor, and I'm happy to see you join us here. It's really a pleasure, because we all love that time.
You know what? That was an amazing period in history and just in my life. Like the 90s were a big learning, growing, experimenting time for me. And I was surrounded by great people. It was a great 10 years being there. It was, thank God, it was a real safe place to be.
Yeah. I've said to you how many times I just absolutely love your performances and how much I related to your character all the way from high school to the last season. I just think the world of you, and I always appreciate you coming on and spending some time with us, man. So thank you for your time. Now we have to move the show along.
Right on, dude. Nice beard, by the way, Pete.
Thank you.
It's good. Yeah, it's coming along well.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Kari, let's catch up and talk at some point. That would be fantastic.
For sure.
Okay,
sure.
I'll put you guys together. Yeah.
Okay, will you do that, Pete? I mean, if Ian could do it, you could do it.
So long, everyone. Bye,
all right, Brian.
Good to see you.
Good seeing you.
Bye.
Bye, Brian. Okay, we're also going to say goodbye to Maggie. Thank you so much for spending time with Brian. Okay, and now we are going to get more into this with Kari. So, Kari, coming into
Thank
this.
you, Pete. That was awesome to see
Yeah,
him. I've
wasn't
been thinking so much about him lately.
Yes.
It's wild, and then there he is. So thank you for that.
Oh,
I think we just said, do you want to pop in to see Kari Wurher? He went, yes.
Yeah,
Oh.
and Maggie. Yes, to be clear.
He's such a great person, really. I mean,
but-
all of them, and I've gotten to know all the boys well, and
I also won't be able
put together a very nice group of kids.
Won't be able to get that hot dog vision out of my head.
Yeah, that was the 90s. When you want to show a little bit of boob and do a funny hot dog gag, call Kari Wurher. She'll put anything in her mouth. It was a fun time in the 90s. He was right.
I'm curious though, did you get any email? Well, I don't know if it was email or letters about how could you do this to Donna? Did anybody take this way too seriously?
Yeah, I got a lot. I got bags and bags of that through my mouth. Right along with the regular prison letters.
Yeah.
Lovely. Yeah, so
yeah, people were upset. And if somebody would recognize me or see me, they didn't know how to react because of that show. They were like, yeah, I remember that pretty distinctly. It was playing a villain without trying to, I guess.
I mean, we could talk about this some other time, but you do come back to the show and you get involved in Donna's life again, and you have a little thing with Ray too. So
we brought her back again. Character payments always motivate writers to bring people back.
I loved it. I wanted to talk to somebody over there about giving me a really big arc for a couple of seasons.
Well, it could have been. I mean, that was the music thing. With it was a convenient thing to have because we always were music adjacent a bit. So you had this hot label and stuff. I think was she working for the Eric Budman character at the end of 6? Is that what happened there? I think we kind of.
Are you really asking me to remember? I don't.
I don't remember, but yeah, we did bring it back. I think so. So that's season 6. We brought you back.
Yeah. No, it was great. I mean, it was the place to be. Fox. If you won't remember, but I had a show start in 1992 at Fox, also called Class of '96. It was.
We
remember.
Yeah, we remember that.
The fucking roof when that show. He called up Peter Chernin, and he actually raised his voice.
Wow.
Yeah. And he was because you boxed us in. They told us. I finally convinced Aaron Spelling that we have to move on. It's impossible to write the show. We've got to, what kids are about are getting into college. We got to move there. We can do it. Be the first show. He signs off. And then it's not just that Fox develops it. It develops it with Leonard Goldberg. Oh. So you really want to put the hot poker in his face.
Yeah. And that ruined their relationship, didn't it? I mean, it was.
No, we know what we were doing. That was a long time before. That was. Actually, Leonard and Aaron actually liked each other very. They were a very good team together, and they liked each other. And both men were.
Doug Kramer was in the middle, I think, too.
What was that?
I was going to ask you guys if you guys know this person that's going to join the show right now. Hello, Paul.
Hey.
No idea, right?
Oh, you should have vetted this, perhaps. I don't know.
Should we let this guy on?
Who are you?
Look at you.
So good to see you.
Yeah, everyone's got a COVID beard, I guess, except for Chuck and I.
Except for me, my wife makes me shave. What
me
can
too,
I do?
mine too.
Well, last time I saw Kari, we were in Africa together.
What? Yeah.
Well, we've seen each other since then, but the last, we
last
were.
Time we worked together, right?
What part of Africa were you?
We were in Cape Town and Sand City near Kruger National Forest doing a Viking movie with Craig Sheffer.
I did a show in Africa too.
I did too.
That's a challenge.
It's amazing.
Let me bring this next person in. Paul, he helped lead the black ball ceremony.
Oh my God! Oh, this is Months who he did actually sync it for you at John Sears.
I voted you out. How's it going, PJ?
Wow, those were great days, weren't they?
Absolutely, my friend. Absolutely.
I moved to America with Jason from Vancouver, and he was doing Sister Kate when we got here, and I was on a series I think called Santa Barbara with Robin Wright back in the day, and he had this audition called Class of Beverly Hills.
Yeah,
wasn't that the title? I think was that it?
Yes, absolutely.
That
was the title. Gary Dillers who changed it, but that wasn't the working title.
Oh, really? Do you know who helped Jason with his audition for that?
Who's that?
Either you or Dave Sherrill. It was
Pitt. Yeah. It was Pitt. Pitt was sleeping on Dave's sofa because they did that movie with Ricky Schroeder together, and Pitt was helping Jason run his lines. I remember that.
Yeah, David Sherrill was on our show also, who was also part of that department.
Right. Yeah, Dave. Yeah. Oh my God, he's in North Carolina. I directed him in an episode of One Tree Hill. He's a great guy.
Before we forget, Michael Lange said to especially say hi to you because he was supposed to be here, but he kind of canceled out. But he wanted you to send his best to you.
Our friend,
unbelievable. I love him.
Kristen, who was on Patreon, asked this question: for Paul, what was it like playing such a jerk when in real life you are a kind Canadian, and she loves all Paul's work, and she specifically loves you in Soap Dish, which I also love as well. What was that a challenge to play such a jerk? And we see him come up in this episode. What was that like?
Well, I don't know if any of you guys saw the One Tree Hill. I did 10 years on that series playing a jerk. So somehow 90210 was the training ground. And it was on a serious note, I think the writers are always the people that need the bow for that, because when they write a character that is conflicted internally, but is seen on the outside as the choices he makes as a jerk. Usually, it's not driven by just straight antagonism. It's driven by something else more complicated. If it's usually like a John Sears or a Dan Scott, it's usually something much more interesting. And I think the greatest, we have so many great examples of wonderful performances of people who have played what we call the bad guy, which are really just conflicted characters that make different choices, and they make it much more nuanced to watch, I think, too. So honestly, the praise always should go to the writers in those regards if the actor's able to pick up on those cues.
Well, this one, watching this episode, I really liked that Larry and Jessica, we had taken a break. Paul, that all the things that you had done that were heinous around with Ian and Steve were 10 episodes ago. It might as well have been another lifetime. Now we're here. And the one thing that I took away so much from your reintroduction was at least in the nature of those scenes or how it was staged, you were so physically imposing. I mean, the bad guy, it really was, don't mess with me. You took my fraternity from me, and here I am, and then I felt very bad to always see you in the mud, Ryan. I did take away that.
I was thinking
as actors, was that mud? Was that mud? What was that? Was it pudding or what was it?
No, it was mud.
No, it was mud.
It was absolutely mud.
Yeah. Mud's got dunked in that too. I mean, they all.
All of you spent so much time in that mud, but I have to say, I think what really played well for me, rewatching it again, was seeing that we put you with Celeste. Yes. Because that really was
just
it was made it even harder on Steve, and I loved seeing you and Celeste together. It was really good, and then watching you hit that thing over and over and over, and your physical.
And you really look like you were a pitcher.
Let's look at
that's the other part of the physical imposing. I'm throwing this. I'm going to hit it this one. You really you had good.
Sure, it's a bet. Now, what do I get if I win? I know. I knock you in the pit of mud and you resign from the keg house. What's the matter? I give up Celeste, you give up the keg house. Sounds fair to me. Those are the stakes, Steve. Take them or leave them.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Chuck. I hit the button by accident. I got a little trigger happy there.
Just in the nick of time. I was going to say some really bad things.
Working with Ian, Paul?
We're still good friends. His daughters and my son swim together at a mutual friend's house, and Ian and I talk a lot. And Brian and I stay in touch too, and Jason and I stay in touch, and it's been a beautiful and long-lasting friendship. It's true. This show changed the industry. It changed television. Even the show that I was just on for 10 bloody years, as you guys all know what that's like. It was always, people were always calling back to this show as sort of the groundbreaker for even setting the stage for our show to be successful. So, I don't know. I mean, I honestly feel like, Uncle Aaron was always kind to me, but, I'm so grateful that I got a chance to work with everybody. I kind of was hoping that, that there would be another chance for this character, but, maybe it's like the Karate Kid when they remade that. You got to remake the character now.
Oh, I love it. I love that idea. Yes, there's a fan page that's dying
if
for
we
a
had been there, he would have come back. Believe me, nothing was thrown away because you had made such an indelible impression on the fans that we knew we could just bring you back and they would understand. Just like Jessica said, when you see John Sears, all of a sudden, that's going to be for Steve. I mean, it's just so it always worked for us. I mean, just bringing Ariel back and who was an important, again, a villain in a certain way, but we needed all these obstacles to prevent relationships. Part of our job was challenging the relationships all the time. And because we were doing, obviously you remember, John, we were doing like probably double offs when you were doing that. We're doing 2 episodes at once. We did 32 episodes a year, which
unbelievable. In season 4, that was our first.
You guys did a really good job with the transition from high school and post high school.
That was our big challenge.
It had never been done.
That was hard.
And it was, I don't know if any, like a lot of these shows now that are on Disney Channel or they give themselves 4 years because they don't want to,
right.
When the kids grow up, that's it. But you just kept tackling things that worked, for this transition from a high school kid to adulthood. And it kept going. It was fantastic. And there wasn't like a jump the shark moment,
Right. Want to show you one more clip here.
Yeah, 32 episodes. You're going to have 2 or 3.
I think we rode the shark a few times.
There was a Howard Stern dream sequence. There was some.
I want to show another.
A long time,
Exactly. Well, 10 years is a long time.
The right to have
Somebody asked me that as a super fan. I don't feel the show ever jumped the shark. Maybe in season 8.
You don't know anything about that.
We haven't.
Yeah, but I mean,
I've never seen an episode.
All right, here. Let's watch another John Sears clip. I love these. I can't get enough of you, Paul. I'm sorry.
How long has this been going on?
10 minutes at least.
Are either of you guys very shy? What do you mean shy? I have an idea. Don't you think that's a little mean? It's perfect. Oh, John! Now.
Wow.
Way ahead of its time.
Red
That was quite a dive.
Yeah, no chance.
Red, white, and blue
bra like that.
Our friend Jennifer Kendall, who's also on Patreon, wants to know how many takes did it take to get the Steve John mud pit shot?
I'm sure 1, probably.
You remember that, Paul? 1. Yeah.
PJ, would you ever let somebody put you in shorts that short again?
I was actually looking at the shorts. They didn't even look like I was wearing anything. It looked like I was just wearing a long t-shirt.
What a baby face. Yeah, I wasn't looking at your face, but I assume.
Hey, while we have you here, Kari, I want to show you a scene. This is the one that we all talk about so much, right?
Can I help you?
Yeah, have you seen Ariel and David Silver? He played in the band?
Oh, yeah. You came to the right place, right over there.
There. Okay, thanks.
Sure.
David?
Who's that? Oh, it's Donna. What am I going to do?
I don't know. Don't look at me. David, open up.
Hi.
Hi, I was looking for you.
Oh, well, you found me.
Well, what are you doing in there?
I'm just hanging out in the limo.
Open the door. It's locked.
Oh, okay.
David. Hi. Oh, my God. Oh, my God.
Donna, I can explain.
There's nothing to explain. I understand. I understand everything.
Donna. Donna, wait!
Troublemaker.
What was he going to explain? I wanted to hear that, man.
I would love to hear that explanation.
Like, things you don't want to say. I mean, there's no answer.
Steve Sanders.
Chuck has an answer.
Deny, deny, deny.
Yeah, I also, watching it today, I thought that the limo driver was really a sadist.
Really?
Yeah.
They could have been smoking pot in there. I mean, they could have been smoking pot or having a little, music.
Yeah, I know. But
it have to be said.
Kari, what do you remember? We talked about it with Brian. What do you remember about shooting all that? Brian talked a little about his memories.
He was right. It was pretty choreographed. Everything had to be just right. There was almost a nip slip there. Catch that?
I did see that.
I
watched that many times. Yes.
Yeah, and I think it was just lovely being with him, and it was easy and really fun. From having obviously been watching the show and then coming on and doing it, I understood the tone of and the way the banter works between the characters, and I just tried to stay within that. It's hard to like slip into somebody else's show, but they're all pros the way that we did it, and it just felt really good, and I wanted to come back every day. It's fun, and Brian's amazing, but he was right, like the whole way that they had to light everything in there, and it was just fun sitting and chatting with them like regular people. So that's like one of the best things about being an actor is you get intimacy with people without doing all the work to get there. You're close like that because you spend so much time together. It was fun.
Hey, Paul, I'm curious for you. I asked Kari this before about getting recognized for this show and people reacting to her in a way because of something that she did with, Donna and David and all this. Did people come up to you for some time talking to you about things that John Sears did?
Oh, well, I think the biggest incident I think that is remembered by the fans for me was my relationship with help me, Jenny
Kelly.
And and it was just, I think that it was taken as so aggressive and off-putting for so many people that I think it made made an impact that was, I think, was intended to make. But I also think that it was a good social lesson for a lot of people, and talking point, especially nowadays, for how a gentleman's supposed to conduct himself and not, and in those days, I think a lot of that stuff just wasn't talked about very much. So I think it's even, pertinent now. It was just, his behavior was, very selfish and narcissistic. And I think that's a lot of the way that, when you're a young man and you got all that, those chemicals flowing through your bloodstream, you make dumb choices, and that character did, and I think that's important to show, the human side of it and how to make those important issues brought out so that, young women can talk about it, especially right now. And I think we are. So I don't know. I think it was ahead of its time in a lot of ways. Don't you guys?
Yeah. I mean, we set that up. You remember, Chuck, we had that on Jess, we had that storyline with AJ Langer a couple of episodes before that, I think.
I was in the first group. Yeah.
I was in the first group, and she was a girl who was kind of like in a halfway house, like an underage girl. And Steve's the one who John's kind of like making moves like to try to see this girl. And Steve's like aghast at it. And we start first seeing John's behaviors. And then we set him up in what becomes, I think, Take Back the Night episode. Is that the one? John
goes right through there. Exactly. Yeah. That was the epiphany.
Yeah, I mean, we were ahead of our time there. There's no doubt. I mean, we really were. And, of all people, Steve is, the good guy.
Right. All right. We have a lot of other things to talk about in this episode, right, Chuck and Larry? So I'm going to say goodbye to Paul and Kari, and we are going to move in.
Thanks for being here. It's just great to see you guys. Thank you so much. I mean, it's just a thrill to see the work again.
Before you leave, Paul, Kristen asked on our Patreon, and maybe for Kari too, getting to know Luke Perry. Do you have any comments or thoughts about your time, starting with Paul on working with Luke?
Well, I was there, not part of the show, but my best friend was Jason, and we were, brothers for a long time before, we came to America. and we lived together when he got the show, and we were great friends with, and Dave Sherrill and those in that group. So Luke was immediately part of it. I don't think I ever in my life met a guy that, unlike a lot of other actors, when you had success, Luke was the first person to give you a hug and tell you how proud of you he was. There was an incredible generosity about his spirit, and not only was he like the consummate, handsome, brooding guy, he was in his heart. He was also the most generous, loving person I think I've ever worked with, ever, and excluding nobody. I don't think I've ever met a person that even heard Luke say a bad word. And there was some trials on that set, and there was tough times, and there was a lot of there was the media was at times trying to put Jason and Luke against each other. They weren't having it. Luke and Jason weren't having that. This was like they were brothers. And I love them both, and I'm so grateful to have had that time with him. But he made a mark about his integrity and about the way that he stood up for people. He's just he's sorely and deeply missed, and but I am grateful for the time that I got to be somebody he called a friend, and I love him dearly.
Very nice. And for you, Kari?
Yeah, I spent a lot of time with him way after the show. Lived in the same neighborhood, and the great dad, spiritual person. Kindness was oozing out of him. Fierce love for his kids. I think he just wanted to be an actor, I think that all the 90210 stuff was a blessing, of course, but I think in the end it was hard, for him to have had so much, you know what I mean?
Sure.
There's a humbleness about him, definitely a person who paid it forward, and tragic and unfair.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, listen, guys, I'm going to say goodbye to Paul and Kari. We have so much. This episode is so long. We have so much to talk about. Paul, please come back. We have so much to talk about.
We should definitely take back the night.
We need a John Sears, a total John Sears deep dive. There's so much to uncover. So,
and I'm next to PJ, okay?
Okay, please. And listen, I just want everyone to know, that was a huge part of my life, and it set me, on a great standard of wanting to continue to work with great people. I'm grateful very much for even you guys giving me the opportunity to play that part. So thank you.
Very awesome, man. All right, we're going to say goodbye to Paul, and we are going to say goodbye to Kari. Kari, you are so stunning and so wonderful.
Yeah, absolutely.
You guys too.
All love.
30 years almost, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
25, 26, 27. Yeah.
All right.
Keep doing what you guys do. All right.
All right, Kari. Thank you so much. All right. And we're going to say goodbye to Muntz as well. Somebody that he was on a podcast. Thank you for that. And we are going to now dive into the other things that were going on to this crazy story, right? I mean, that was a lot, right, guys? That was a lot of things that all just happened right now. Before we hop into the next thing, let me play this for Melanie Rose, and then we're going to talk about Brenda. We're going to talk about Andrea. We're going to talk about all these other things that are going on in this story.
Ho ho, 90210. 90210 Hunts is coming to town this week, December 17th through the 21st. The virtual scavenger hunt features over $600 in prizes, including a $300 gift card, $200 in streaming TV services for 1 year, sponsored by Team Drama Whore, merch, and more to the Beverly Hills 90210 show, copies of a very special 90210 book, plus trading cards, and more. So head over to 90210hunts.com, register today. Anybody with a smartphone can join, and get ready for a holly jolly good time in our favorite TV zip code starting this Thursday.
Always a lot of fun with Melanie Rose's hunts, so make sure you hop into that as well.
She looks adorable.
She always does too. Yes. Okay. Which one do you want to talk about first? Should we talk about this ICU stuff that's going on with Andrea?
Why not? Then, because that's Larry knows. Take it away, Larry.
Yeah.
Well, in this episode, of all things, the baby gets born. I mean, and of course, this, I was able to tell the writers and myself, and again, the story, at least, which I thought had some emotional punch to it, so they could, adapt to whatever we needed. And because, my wife in 1981 gave birth after, only like 6.5 months into her pregnancy, a 1 pound, 14 ounce baby.
And down to 1 pound. Johnny, right?
That was Johnny. And at the time, there's Johnny.
Hi, Johnny.
There's Johnny.
This was a 1 pound, 14 ounce baby that was born, and all the fears and some of the emotional beats. Hey, Johnny, how you doing? You don't have no memories of this, of course. But he was born, and it was, again, they tell you right away it's 50-50. So, and was able to instill that, what we started getting some drama. I started, this is now 11 years later, so there was some artistic distance.
Can you guys hear me?
Tell the story. What?
Can you guys hear me?
Can I hear? Yeah. There you go.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, guys, I couldn't hear you. Some sort of a mic malfunction.
Oh,
good to be here. I didn't hear any introductions. Hi, Pete.
All right. Hey, Johnny. Larry is just telling how the story came to be. So let him finish that, and then we'll pop in and ask you some questions about this too, Johnny. All right, go ahead, Larry.
Well, we had obviously been setting this story up. I think the episode before, Andrea has the dream, which was my wife's dream, about being lost in the forest, and you hear this baby crying, and you can't find it. You can't find it. And she had this, it was a recurring dream. And then finally the dream ends. She finds the baby. It's a tiny, perfect baby that fits in her hand. And that became kind of like a premonition dream, even though, I don't really necessarily believe in these things, but that's what it was. And so Dan Attias did that in the episode before, and that was kind of good. Now we have the baby born, and then you have all the terror. You want to celebrate. It's the birth of a baby, but you don't know if it's going to live.
Yeah.
And all that in this episode, I had forgotten what had happened. I mean, so a lot of the Mark Damon part was really, seen through my eyes. So I thought Mark did a wonderful job in this. And but the whole thing about naming the baby, do you want to name it? Or you don't just, it's like you're superstitious if you name it, so you don't know what to do. You're kind of caught, and it's so real, and you're so young, you don't understand what's going on. And for me, it was the writer's strike of 1981. I had just started breaking in, and we were on strike. And so literally, the LA Times had a huge picture of it because it was the smallest surviving baby at that time. And I was on strike, and it was a good human interest story. But it was terrifying. And this episode plays nicely as they work itself through, the end being that they put the name of the baby on the incubator, and that kind of, you realize that they're really in it. And I wanted to ask Jessica and Chuck, the name Hannah, I suspect was from Jessica because it means hope. It's kind of did you know, was that you, Jess? Was that Steve? Was it Chuck?
I'm guessing that it was me, but I don't know. And
I think it was that I had a premonition that my son would marry a woman named Hannah.
Right. And I have a granddaughter whose name is Donna. So
did you know it meant hope? But did you know it meant hope?
I'm sure Jessica got that.
I must have looked up what's the name that means hope.
Yeah,
right. Exactly.
You brought that line. Yeah.
And again, for me, we named him Johnny Mars because Mars had strength. Because I think, and the other thing, Mark has this scene where he admits to Brandon that he's really hoping it's a girl because the girls have a better chance. And it is a girl. In my case, it wasn't. We kept, whatever the number was, like you have 1,001 chance. We kept hitting those numbers, and it was just eerie. And
I was so touched, Larry, by the scene in watching it again of Mark seeing all the friends and not being exuberant about the birth. He was so restrained, and I wondered how much that was what you had felt at the time.
It was. And Pete had asked me on the watch along, did I have, because then there's some really nice stuff here with Steve Sanders and Mark, which I had forgotten. All of a sudden they had this whole afternoon together, and Steve just rises to the occasion. And for me, that was the guy who was a guest on our show a couple of weeks ago, Art Hindle. I mean, Art, because when Johnny was born, he was born in Santa Monica Hospital, but they couldn't handle anything that small. So I had to, have with the ambulance, leave D, and go to the other hospital. He went to UCLA neonatal clinic, and Art he was the Steve Sanders me, kind of getting through that time. And yeah, so I mean, you just don't know. I mean, you just don't know where your emotions are at that point. And I thought Mark really excelled, so that was a pleasure to see. Johnny, it's good to see you. He now is 39 years old, and what's up?
Hey, well, Johnny, I'm curious for you. Have you seen this episode of Beverly Hills 90210? And are you aware of this story and the fact that it was written about? How do you feel about some of all of that?
Yeah, no, we absolutely, sat as a family and watched the episode. I was very well aware at the time that the story was about my birth, and it certainly meant something special to me. At that time, maybe something different. I was younger, more just exciting to be a part of, a storyline on the show. Was pretty cool just in general. But later on, I've been able to see that, for my dad, for Larry to be able to tell that narrative about that birth and the emotions and the pain. Clearly, this is beyond, memories that I'm capable of. But what I can take into account is how scary and horrifying it must have been. And then also exciting to be able to, see me come out on the other end of it. So very cool. It was, we felt good. I remember, I have a picture in my head of, maybe it just must be in the dream scene of Andrea holding the baby. And, I can see my mom and dad also speaking to me in regards to it about, probably something about it could fit in a shoebox or your fingers were the size of a pinky nail. I can see that moment of watching the show in the family room.
Yeah, I think my wife asked me, because she didn't see the baby. She was cesarean. She said, "How big is he?" I said, "He's about as big as my boot."
Yeah. Hey, this is such an emotional, heartwarming story. Thank you for sharing it with us, Larry.
Yeah.
Hey, Johnny, before we let you go, I think your dad is one of the coolest people I've ever met. What is the coolest thing about your dad, Larry Mollin?
Oh man. It was quite a privilege to grow up and be his son, and certainly was an awesome ride. He's fun. He's creative. I spent a lot of my childhood doing, improv style acting, from the time I was, 4, he was having me doing, drills, and, he was a special man. He was always my coach, and all through athletics. He was always my hero. I always spoke about him as so, and still feel that way. So he's a cool guy. He might have let me be a little bit too cool at times, but
okay.
But we've rectified that at this point in my life. But it was a real privilege to grow up in and to be his son, and it meant the world to me. It was certainly something that I connected with my being and helped me to gain some efficacy for the world.
That's awesome. Linda says, Larry Mollin, you are such a sweet and sentimental guy. You're a natural storyteller. So very, very beautiful stuff. Some quick questions, Larry, on this topic that came from Patreon. Sorry to plug that in the middle of something so beautiful. Decorating an incubator in ICU, is that a real thing?
It certainly was in 1981 when he was born. And that kind of, showed that people really were committed to the kid. Because one thing I remember as a young dad, this was at UCLA, the neonatal clinic. Every time those elevator doors opened up and we came out, there was something bad that was going to be going on in that room. Someone's child was not making it. Something bad was going on. And it was really tough. And we tried to have friendships with people there, and one person committed suicide. Other people. It was a traumatic time. because there wasn't as much scientific knowledge then. There wasn't a survival rate for under 2 pounds at that point.
And Alicia Bogner wants to know how the scenes with Hannah were filmed. Was the real preemie used for this?
Sure, looked like it. We'd have to ask Michael Lange that. I wasn't so super. Do you remember that, Chuck or Jess?
You find the babies. It's really surprising. I don't think we ever had trouble casting a baby in Los Angeles. You're paying money, and
I mean, we touched the baby and everything.
That was a tiny little baby.
I know that was
a stock shot, and you saw hands go into it. You never saw the baby up with the live baby up. Just was to access to the shot of the baby.
It probably not even getting the visual.
The illusion that you were in this.
What do you think they did with that finger? What about the finger shot?
I know. I was worried about that because she's
that
touching
finger
the baby.
shot. That was like.
But that's the shot I remember in the newspaper for Johnny. His face, the finger was bigger than his face.
Yeah.
The finger shot could have been a stock shot out of Children's Hospital. That's all it was.
Yeah.
I mean, we didn't do it.
Yeah, I mean, given that we were also faking President Clinton.
That's right, Larry. It's filmmaking. Yeah.
Filmmaking.
Yeah. We were making a movie, right?
Yeah, that's how it works.
That's right. Yeah.
All right, we're going to say goodbye
Thanks
to
for
Johnny.
reminding us,
Johnny.
Chuck.
By the way,
but I got to say hello and goodbye.
We still
Johnny,
have
it's
more
really
to
good to
talk
see
about.
you.
Love you, Chuck. Good to see you,
I
Jason.
never get to
All right.
Love you, Johnny. Take care, buddy.
There's still more to talk about in this episode. We just uncovered a few things that are happening in this episode. Let me pull this clip here and see.
We're not even in my plots yet.
I was going to say that's why there was so much. That's why it took 3 writers to write.
Exactly.
All right, let's start at the basics. The carnival. You kind of talked a little bit of this when Brian was with us, Chuck. Tell me about why and how we got to the carnival. Mind you, we got the Dylan thing to talk about. We've got the Brenda thing. She's leaving. So there's multiple things. Kelly in Washington. So much is happening. Claire in this dream with Dina Meyer or Lucinda. So let's start with the carnival
itself.
Yeah.
Well, it was reminding Larry that UCLA had an incredible carnival on their grounds where the soccer stadiums, where the soccer fields are, Jess, right by, and Poly Pavilion, really was just being built, and there wasn't a track stadium. It was a perfect place to have and the Greek system was huge at UCLA at the time in the 60s, in the mid 60s, and every frat and every sorority had a booth, and if you were 13, 14, 15, and you went to Beverly, Hamilton, University, Fairfax, you had Santa Monica, you had to go to this.
Yeah.
And so it was really a cultural thing. It lasted a weekend. And Larry reminded me that it ultimately got replaced by a reggae, when the Greek system eroded, that I guess in the 70s, they had a reggae festival always there. And it was always a fundraiser for the camp, the summer camp, all those Cal Camp always has, stuff, and that, we were, by the fact that we were always doing charitable acts in our show in the Greek system, even in high school. So that it fit into that. But what a big profile. We had the meetings.
It was unbelievable. What was great, Chuck, watching it again was the money that was spent.
I'm going for the money right now. We finally gave us the budget. For 4 effing years, I said, why can't we just make a normal show with a normal budget and a normal amount of days? And they let us do it in this because it was the end of the year. And it was a huge, Larry has made reference to this. Maybe you have too, Jess, over our conversations. But sweeps really mattered in the 90s. In fact, it was what held the network system together. Was a system, by the way, we were talking about in the mid 90s that was fraying, not at Fox but at other networks. Network relationships between the network itself and the satellite, the stations, and all the different that carried their programming. Was more important to the viability of the network in the 70s and 80s than it was in the 90s. But it was very important for Fox. We tried really hard. They were giving us 2 hours. And also, because of the way that we produced our shows, because of what our overhead was and just everything else, we had a lot of capital that we had saved in year 4 to be able to spend, and we still came in very far under budget for year 4, probably more than any other season that we did, quite frankly.
Michael really sold the set too, and when he shot through the carousel, that was such a cool shot.
Yeah,
and we really got a sense of the scope and the fact that he shot in day and night.
Yes,
and it was
great.
The Ferris wheel. It was very good use of money.
Very, very creative things that he did that way, and even the fact of they borrowed from all sorts of carnivals. The mimes on stilts and different things like that. And Larry pointed out one of the things that really was very cool, and you don't see it in the same way today. And it's just people dancing, and not dancing to. I'm dancing because I'm, in a very, with a lot of sexual moves and innuendo, and you're in a bar. And no, this was just kids dancing outside to that old time rock and roll, or this.
Right,
So,
which was so cool. Yeah,
and all of that. The one thing that interested what we did with it was, and also we set stuff up in that. You saw the tensions, you saw the stuff, you talked about it, but you didn't see it lay out. So in one sense, I thought at a certain point, like, oh, come on, Donna, why, it's a one note thing. You're so scared, just like Brenda and Kelly were talking to her. Come on, it's the way it is with guys, and just trying to be more realistic about it. But, it's set up for that kind of tension. And I think you find that in the stuff with Mr. Walsh in Washington. You find it certainly in Dylan's story. That stuff is set there, and probably more in Dylan's story than the other two, to be able to look back and go, "Oh my God, they set this, and didn't realize as it was going forward."
Yeah,
but I do feel that
stuff there in the
the carnival gave us a place to be, to leave, to come back to be part of, and then of course the big concert at the and Brian Green laughed at me, Jessica, when I brought up the turtles.
No, I know.
Yeah, I don't think he knew them, Chuck. I think he was thinking you were talking about mutant Ninja Turtles. I don't think it flashed on him.
Fans, if you don't know the song,
Happy Together.
That song's okay, but Some Girls is the best. It's the best. It holds up. Leonard Skinner should have done a cover, Larry.
Now, the other thing that's happening here is the you kind of talked about it, Chuck. When we've talked about it before, we did a whole episode about Noli and Kari and Suzanne or whatever, and Erica, and the whole money thing. I got to talk to Noli this week, and we rewatched this episode and her scenes in it. So I'm going to play that clip, and then I want to ask you about that storyline and finally paying that off. So here is that clip of me and Noli, and you can do this on Patreon with us. First, I want to ask you what you remember about shooting this episode.
I think I remember mostly shooting at the carnival for a week. That was really fun.
And I remember last time we talked, you told us that you and Shannon got to spend a lot of time hanging out at this carnival, right?
Yeah, I think that I got to spend more time with a variety of the characters that week. And just when we had some free time, we got to hang out at the carnival, which was awesome.
How many takes does this take?
What was that?
How many takes does that take? you.
I mean, that was one of the things where, like, when we weren't filming, I was practicing it, and I got pretty good at it. And I think Shannon was doing it too. Yeah, it didn't take that many. Once I got the hang of it,
yeah, it
was pretty easy.
All right, then they throw this at you here. This is something that I think everybody sort of remembers. The big. You're gonna write a note. Do you remember doing this?
Yeah, I remember shooting that scene, and I remember I feel like we did that scene in like less than an hour.
Right.
Like quick.
It seems very easy to shoot, but in these sets, who knows?
Well, we were actually in the bathroom too, so we weren't on set.
So we're at whatever airport it was the bathroom of that airport.
We had to do it real quick.
Yeah.
That's what I remember.
Noli is Larry. Noli is always so wonderful. I love talking to her. You can watch all of that if you are a member of our Patreon. It's such a big help to the show if you do that. Chuck and I are doing a very cool interview with Jill Henkel, who I mentioned earlier, and also Tom Victor. We're going to talk about this local locations and making the carnival and all that stuff. So,
and we should explain one thing to our more production business oriented fan group is that we always would have a production meeting about what we were going to be doing in the episode, but it started, and that was the big one with all the. But you also started one with the key people. Well, they were the key people. So Jessica, Larry, we had lots of meetings with them in the beginning of the process of doing an episode, and also that prepping an episode, and then also finishing that right before production in the final production meeting, as it were. And we were so far ahead, quite frankly. And again, one of the things that makes it that we could focus on things that an episodic show that did 32 episodes probably didn't have the right to even having to be done. But we did get so far ahead. I remember it but by the time we got to even in the prepping, they were already putting the stuff together. And by the time we got to the production meeting, it was pro forma. There was very little open for discussion by then, whereas we've all been in production meetings where the profanity starts after about 5 minutes and people are screaming at each other and we'll talk about it later.
We'll sidebar that.
Yeah,
we'll
sidebar
that later. But yeah, on the other shows, on our show, you're really right. And the part of the division of labor for Steve Wasserman and me was that I did pre-production and he did post-production.
Right, exactly.
when we worked together. And
you were involved with casting in any episode, not even ones that you didn't. Writers were usually involved, but you two both like casting. You'd come to casting a lot.
Yeah, I did a lot.
And I like casting too, and was obviously involved in it. But if I was more on the post side. And
I did a lot of casting stuff, and I did a lot of the meeting with the department heads and Molly. I spent an awful lot of time with Molly, and talking about wardrobe and Jill as well. And it was fun. And production meetings were fun.
We didn't know if we could do anything until Tom said, "Yeah, we can do this." Tom was the one, and he had to get it into the budget too, because, we work for the spelling company. So he and it's required the people in the keys they submit a budget, and the budget has to be approved, has to come in, and that's a big part of these guys' life. So we'll talk about that tomorrow, Pete. Huh?
Yeah. Hey, that Noli thing was great, though. By the way, I just so lovely to see her and to have her take on these things. That she has such a unique view of the show.
Yeah, we had a
really appreciate her coming on. That's just
she's so sweet. Yeah, she's down to do whatever we want to do with her. She's just happy to hang out with us. So talk about that storyline, Chuck, because we're going to pay that off. And people are messaging or in the comments. We're going to talk about Brenda, and we're also going to talk about Kelly and Brandon. Yes, we're going
because the show starts with Brandon. It starts with Brendan Brandon. It's got to end with Brendan Brandon.
Right, exactly. So, but let's talk about this and this storyline with Dylan. I mean, it's so beautifully done. I looked back with Noli this week and I said, I can't believe I didn't see it coming now that I've seen it so many times, but you did a masterful job with this and putting this all together. What were you thinking? I'm curious, when you were going to pay this off. You knew this had to be the episode that you were going to pay it off, right?
Oh, of course. And I was saying to Larry yesterday, just in responding to me, seeing the parts of the episode, but even before going back to see it, what I remember a lot is that scene that we filmed in like a brunch after their wedding. And there's the buffet and the ruin out there. It's the first time the two guys talk about the business and how, in particularly this episode, the word family and what it means is used to manipulate. And, really, as someone who also went into some ventures that were regrettable to me, I know that idea that it's everything is presented to you that it, makes it seem this, this is so much. I don't think so. But you think, well, maybe we can. And it's, and that litmus, whether Dylan McKay starts his thing saying to James Eckhout, or to, I'm not a greedy man, but the fact is, time out. Yes, you are. And when greed and big money is in part of something, and you feel that, yes, I've got, and especially once you've tasted the life of money, you want to sustain it. I mean, look at David Perdue in Georgia, for God's sakes. Once you're rich, that's what you want to be. And you want to I'll do anything to get richer. What do you do? This is, so I felt sorry for them in that scene and watching it because I knew, oh, this is what this means. This is what's going on right here. But in terms of our core audience watching this, an hour and 25 minutes, they leave the bank. He walks to Suzanne, and that's the first time you realize that for 8 months there's been a scam going.
Yeah. And
we scammed the viewers. And as I've said before, and Jess was in the room, Larry was in the room, particularly Jess was in the room in that moment. I assured Aaron Spelling that when we got to this point, nobody would see it because he thought they're going to know their cons and it's going to be a grift. And I said, no, we'll work really hard to neutralize that. And we did. And you put in moments at the Peach Pit and this and the boyfriend, and you built slow. We weren't in any hurry. We just knew we had to back. And usually when you do a story arc, and Jess and Larry, I don't know if this is true for you, but for me, you back time it. I can take this out to this episode. What happens going backwards being more important.
Yeah, we definitely did. I mean, but Noli, the grifters using a child, manipulating a child as part of it is so low. That's what's great about it. I didn't realize that at the time, but it's really despicable. So that was great. And the great thing was, Jess, you remember this? Chuck, you remember? Kari did not know it was. So that's what's so great about her performance. She had no idea it was a
right here. She had no idea.
Right, it's insane.
And we did that a lot too. Valerie Waldman had no idea that we envisioned her always to be the girlfriend from the FBI. She had no idea until I called her up as she was driving to do the scene and saying, guess what? Guess who you work for the next episode? Because that's the only way to get it fun on these things you don't want to reveal. And we had a problem with 90210, and Jessica, I know, remembers this, is that our scripts and stories would end up in Entertainment Weekly or wherever else they get funneled off. We had a hard time keeping our story arcs under wraps.
Well, they certainly would go to Melrose.
The other thing that you do beautifully in this, Chuck, is because I've been watching a lot of the Christmas episodes for next week. We have our big Christmas party, so don't forget about that. Make sure you're super deluxe.
And Jessica, I promise you, there will be at least one Hanukkah scene. I promise you.
Hey, Jews write the best Christmas shows.
That's for sure.
Because we got the Hanukkah one, we got the band with Lindsay and Shira and Avery and Karen. We got and Shira's in the shots too. So
Chuck,
we're going to be.
Did you hang stockings up as a kid? Did you hang?
No, Karen did.
Did you hang stockings up, Jess?
No, there was a couple of years though where we did have a tree.
We hung stockings up as a kid,
Well, we hung it up for our kids.
It's like a religious thing. It's like oranges and walnuts.
We hung it up for our kids because Karen did, and finally the kids, especially led by Lindsay, went, "Mom, we're Jewish. Get this stuff out of here." My family, though, was very celebratory of Christmas. I think we were talking about this the other day. Because my dad was a prominent doctor, and doctors' patients gave gifts. My dad would get 50 gifts. And if we can guess what it's in there, except for booze, we got to keep it. And then by the time we were older, we got to keep the booze too. I think it's Cuddy Sark, Dad. Okay.
I bring up Christmas because
that's a good scene, Chuck. Held it somewhere.
You introed the family, the grifters, Kevin, Suzanne, and Erica at Christmas, and they show up it was really well done because there's no way to believe that these people would show up on Christmas. You feel like it's a part of the Christmas storylines that are going on for that particular episode. There is no way that you can ever see it coming because of particularly bringing it in Christmas. So
I guess that's right. That's season 4, and it's that heartwarming moment, Jess. Where they get to go to Disneyland, and you think that's going to be it, but no, it gets a little more complicated, and then the secret, of course, and probably one of the reasons it does work, it was effective, because we did so many episodes. We could lay it dormant for 4 or 5 episodes. So it's not on the forefront. And you really look at the great shows who use serialization. I'm talking about Mad Men, Sopranos, and a few others. Those are the 2 I were big fans in. And there'd be an episode with characters, and then there wouldn't be anything with the same characters till 5 episodes later.
Right.
And it gave you that, time. The time that passed on. So I'm glad you like it. Glad it holds up. I feel good about it watching. It was a highlight for us. The ratings were huge. Thank you.
All right, I'm going to play a little Christmas ad for the show next week. We're going to come back and we're going to talk about Brandon going to Washington, and we're going to talk about Brenda leaving the show. I'm particularly interested in hearing from Jessica Klein on this topic because we've never heard from her on this topic. Shannon leaves the show, and of course, there's that amazing scene with Brenda and Dylan. So here's a Christmas ad. When we come back from that ad, we're going to talk all about those couple of things.
So, it's the most 90210 time of the year. And Charles,
having a meeting here?
Pete,
I really am a Claire.
and Larry want to celebrate with you as the Beverly Hills 90210 show brings you the Christmas party. First off, we're going to be talking about Steve Sanders going to find his birth mother with...
I'm Steve.
That's right. Ian Ziering, a.k.a. Steve Sanders himself, will be with us to talk about his compelling Christmas storyline in Walsh Family Christmas. And if that's not enough, joining the party will be...
I just want to make it clear, they did not learn this in honors English.
Mark Tiley, a.k.a. Gil freaking Myers. Plus, leading us in some tunes will be none other than Jamie Walters. To top that off, Mrs. Teasley, a.k.a. Denise Dowse, will be joining us. And of course, no holiday party will be complete without a visit from the Walshes. Plus, you know by now, anything and everyone is possible. Join us Wednesday night, December 23rd from 5 to 7 p.m. Pacific, 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern, live at Beverly Hills 90210show.com. It's the most wonderful zip code of all time. Seriously.
All right, so make sure you come back next week. It's going to be amazing. Gil Myers, I still can't get over that, and Jamie Walters. It's going to be really, really awesome. And props to Melanie Rose for helping us track down Gil Myers. That was a task in itself. All right, let's talk about Brenda. Shannon Doherty is leaving the show. Jessica as one of...
You want to do that? I thought you were saving that one for the last one. Or you want to do that one?
All right, fine. Save the best for last. There you go for your Brenda fans. All right. Brandon is going to Washington, D.C. To do this thing with Bill Clinton. Talk to me about this concept, Chuck.
That is a Rosin, a wet dream, of course. I worked in Washington. I worked in Congress. I was there in 1973 while Senate Watergate was going on. And it was great. And I really, always was imbibed with political stuff, as you guys know only too well. But, and the idea being that you could, that here's Brandon Walsh, this all-America kid from Minnesota. And while it's far-fetched for the fact that he would be shaking the president's hand in the same way that the president had shaken JFK's hand, there still is this notion of that there is, and you could feel it in the 90s, a lot easier than now, quite frankly, that there was continuity in the institutions, in the entertainment, in the functioning of our society, quite frankly, and that education mattered. And I think that we really created an interesting, Brandon, and getting all that kind of praise from. I really like that moment when he's actually just given the speech and he's walking out and people are praising him. Yes. But I want to say something in praise of our director, just for a second, Michael Lange, who unfortunately couldn't be with us, but. And when Brandon arrives for the first time in Washington, D.C., and he walks in and he's in a suit, he's taking the red eye, leaving Andrea. He walks over, he's headed to the chancellor, and he walks right past, not realizing that Claire is in the shot. But if you're looking at the shot, you can see Claire, and you walked right by it. Michael did things like that up and down the board. There was one other one I want you guys to all go back in. I felt really like I was like Shelley Reinstein or Sherry Weiss, hello Sherry, or Jen, any of you guys, because I saw something. I actually stopped the tape and went back and looked at it. So when the gang is first all together at the hospital, and Kelly does a walk across and has to cut in front of Brandon, she touches his thigh. She sees moving by. Now, it showed that they had something there, and Brandon didn't react. And there were touches like that all through this.
And on the overhead of the loudspeaker, it was paging Dr. Klein. I heard that.
Yes, exactly.
One of the great delights.
Names.
When
Brandon, also I want to point out, when Brandon was up there waiting to shake Bill's hand, the young woman he's standing next to is somebody who you see all the time on Beverly Hills 90210. I unfortunately don't remember her name as I'm sitting here right now, but it's Brenda stand-in. It's the gal who always was the stand-in. Stand-ins are there every single moment of every single scene. And so because of that, you play an extra, you play this, you get that.
Yeah.
And because she was such, the family, she always got the good,
the bump. She got a bump.
Stuff,
Dina says, "Love Larry, Chuck, Pete, and Jessica. They're the best part of 2020." Wow, what a very nice compliment. I don't think it gets any better than that.
I really appreciate that. I would add LeBron James, Corey Seager, Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, and my granddaughter, but these guys are up there too.
My dog Yoshi.
My dog, my wife would throw them on that list as well. In all of Jill's pictures today, there is I kept going like, oh my god, it's Brenda. Oh my god, it's the stand-in through in all the photos.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so then Larry, I wanted to share this picture. I'm surprised you got a Bill Clinton, but you didn't ask your buddy to come to the show. This is Larry with his college buddy, who happens to be the former president of the United States.
Yeah. I started. We went to Georgetown School of Foreign Service class of '68. I didn't graduate from there because the war was going on, so I left after 2 years. But I was always friends with Bill and continued a friendship when he became the governor of Arkansas. And never imagined that this poor kid from a brothel town in Arkansas would become president, though he told us he was going to become president. Wow. And it's a great delight that Chuck had this vision of it, and all that was really true. That picture that he talks about was a picture in his dorm room at Georgetown when he was a member of what was called Boys Nation, and they got to go to Washington, same way Brandon got to go to Washington with the task force. And there was a picture. I'm sure JFK shook a lot of hands. It wasn't just that one. But that was the kind of thing Chuck had in his mind, and I knew it to be authentically true. So,
and one thing I like,
great.
Yeah, one thing I really like about how it is too, how then Kelly played off of it, and you see it almost all through season 5. She liked being with a powerful guy.
Yes,
I like in your world.
Man. I caught that. Yeah,
she had vanquished Claire and Lucinda. She had ended up on top of the pyramid.
I had forgotten that Brandon finally relented and gave Claire a really good kiss at the act break.
So good.
Thank God.
We needed that.
God, what were you doing? Because she's so adorable.
Yeah. I have to ask you a question, Chuck. I have a question. When we have that great sequence where Brandon is with Kelly, and you invoke the Capra stuff, and the camera pulls back, and how come they don't kiss?
Beats me.
I thought it was crying out for it.
I don't know, Mr. Director. I don't have the script in front of me, but the Capra moment would have been a kiss. No question about it. I don't know.
We'll have to write Michael for that question.
Chuck, there's also a fun Northern Exposure line in here.
Unga talking. Yeah,
Unga talking.
I actually used Unga talking. It was in my episode of the Russian flu. I had it in there because Unga talking is, and it's a great thing. It really is and I used it, and by the way, I knew about Unga talking before Northern Exposure because when I was a TV movie writer, I was a CBS movie I did that was set in Alaska. And basically, it's the tribal thing. And what it basically means, sorry, I'll use my gross, profanity here. It means you can have sex with anyone.
Yeah, you have to say warm.
It doesn't matter. Go
happy.
for it. Oh, good talking.
I think there's definitely going to be
like wunderbar, but it's
going to be an Ungetang
And
t-shirt.
what's
I would
the
wear that
word
sweatshirt.
for threesome? Because that was what I can't believe that
much
we
beauty
saw
in that shot.
on this show at that time.
I'm really surprised by that too. Yeah.
And then the payoff
just,
of Kelly walking in.
Yeah, because it was titillating, and he runs off with Kelly, and it was only a dream sequence. We had gotten away from dream sequence.
It was only a dream sequence.
We had gotten away from it. We really had. There was so much, looking back at the season 1, and then to extent season 2, how much we used dreams and things like that, and that we moved away from that. And so to have one here,
the hands under the table, that was no dream sequence either.
No,
that was very steamy.
That was Steve Wasserman, I believe.
I was just going to say, this was Steve Wasserman.
Yeah, Jessica and I just took notes on that one. He was telling us.
I remember the three of us in my house, and I sat there typing away, there were moments that I know were I wrote because they were lines that I'd lived through. And there were moments, that scene at the dinner table, at the lunch or dinner, when the people in Washington are talking about the Phillips Gallery and all this. This was at the time that Steve was really obsessed with the art, and he had done all that research and he put that in. It was all real, and it was just
right.
Yeah,
and interestingly enough, I have been to the Phillips, and I've been to Custis Lee, and the Phillips. Every time I go back, even, I try, it's up in DuPont Circle. It's not one of the Smithsonian's. It's an incredible small collection. It's beautiful. And the Custis Lee Mansion arguably is the most boring place I've ever been, except Jefferson Davis's home in Richmond. The extremes. So, we really got in there. And I loved it that they called it the Curtis.
It's not the Curtis Lee.
I can't even remember the name,
Chuck, do you think Larry and I, when we watched it, we did a watch along on Patreon. Do you think that those were stunt hands, or do you think Claire and Lucinda and Jason were those hands under the table?
I think so.
I think it was
Yeah. Oh,
I think real hands. We wouldn't pay for extra hands. We wouldn't pay for extra hands.
No, what was that? That's
a Stephen Cannell insert team.
Yeah.
I also love, Chuck, the line is the Northern Exposure line.
And I'm sure they all like doing it.
The Northern Explosion line that's so funny is that Clara says, I'm surprised I thought you would hear this on Northern Exposure, and Lucinda says, you will now, which I just
No, it's a great, I picked that up
that
too.
was my dig to the guys. Yeah. Well, the night that it kind of affected me for 5 years, the night that Northern Exposure got its star treatment from the Museum of Television and Radio, which used to be at the LA County, and it was a big deal to be invited in this. And Northern was doing it, and they were showing my episode. They wanted to show a different episode, but it wasn't ready in time, so they had to use mine. And I'm there with the associate producer. We have finished our first season, and what he said to me is, "God, yeah, your show, it's really, it's the Brady Bunch." And we had done Isn't It Romantic and all these different. So we did the Brady Bunch. What is it? But I realized that and from that moment on, that is how critical establishment saw us. And it really didn't matter what we did. We were working for Aaron Spelling, and we had good looking cast. It didn't matter in that. And it left the scar tissue that lasted and really until I met Sherry, quite frankly, because I didn't 90210. I called it. I think Jessica will remember it. Larry certainly remembers it. You know what I used to call it? The zip code thing. That's what it was. It was a check that came to me, and thank you. And it was hard. It was hard to rebound us writers off of that.
A couple more things on this Washington stuff. This is Bill Clinton. It's You know, casting a Bill Clinton, is that a hard thing to do? I don't know.
It was just, I remember
No, at that
in.
time, there were people who were lookalikes.
Yeah,
there always were lookalikes.
An agency that guy would be very much in demand. He'd be probably doing working 5 days a week.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is, we do see Brandon and Kelly together. This is a long build of many, a long time of people wanting to see this, and you finally paid this off. I guess for each of you, how important was it to start building this relationship? I'll start with Jessica on that.
Well, it was important because we knew where it was going.
Mhm.
And, this is Lane. We knew it was a big deal. This was a sweep story. And it was interesting, too, because Kelly was the one who took the initiative. She's the one who flew herself there and got on that plane and made the move. And it could have gone bad. And
I love that she got Andrea's permission.
I was thinking the same thing. Yeah. I had forgotten that scene where both of them had both wanted Brand. She said, "Go for it." Yeah, that was great.
Yeah, because I wondered right then. She was thinking, if you could get me out of this hospital bed, I would go with you. It was.
Yeah. It was really nice.
There was some.
It was really nice.
Yeah.
It was really nice, and I loved the moment when Claire and Lucinda see Brandon walking out with Kelly and realize they've been bested by her, and it was really good. It was really good because our heroine Kelly wins.
Yes.
But by the same token, we're also setting up Claire Arnold very gracefully because she's going to become really important.
Yes, and we sure knew that. But I also, when I watch these, I take down notes and I circle things that I want to bring. And that line, would be one of my favorite lines, which you're talking about, Jess, where Claire says, "Think we've been had," and Lucinda's response is, "No, actually, we haven't." And I thought that was like banter, and that's just didn't, rise to the top. People weren't focusing because they're not looking at that. They're not listening for that. But
we had three Northern Exposure writers who wrote that script. So even I had done one too that first season. So there we were with our humorous, our dramedy skills, Chuck, right at the ready.
Dina Meyer knows how to give a line like that too. She really has such a great quality.
Can I just say, she was so gorgeous.
Yes.
And when she gets in the elevator with the academic
Dean Trimble,
and she's got a little midriff showing.
Yeah.
I thought, wow, that was a little risque for this professor.
Yeah, it's open here. It's open here too, and then it's got that whole. Yeah, it's crazy.
Oh, it's a whole thing.
We should have asked Molly about
really
that.
hot.
Yeah, Pete, why didn't you invite her to come on the show?
She really doesn't like phone calls, so don't go down that road.
No, not everyone has most people do have wonderful memories of the show. Some people obviously think it's a third rail or a toxic memory for them.
Yes.
Well, yes, especially when the producers sue you if you won't come on the set.
Yeah. So, and we'll get into that.
But she's gorgeous. That's why we wanted her on the set, but she didn't want to be there.
All right, we have to get
to a movie for Carrico.
We have to get to this. I'm going to play a scene.
Wonderful people.
Lucinda, Dina Meyer, come on the show, please. Okay?
We forgive.
Yeah, forgive and forget.
It's
the holiday season. All right, here. This we have to talk about this.
Dylan, I love you. I've never stopped loving you. And I know now I never will.
I'll applaud you from afar.
I want more than your applause. I won't be gone forever, Dylan. Give me something to come back to.
Zara says this scene was everything. Whew, I felt the same way. All right, so we've talked about it with you guys before that Shannon was leaving. I want to get to Jessica's thoughts on that process of Shannon leaving the show. We'll start there, and then we'll talk about how wonderful this scene is.
Okay, so I can't give you any input into this because I was too low in the totem pole at that time to have had anything to do with it. I knew what was going on, but I wasn't privy to the discussions that led to it. Right, Chuck? This was you.
The daily discussions, you mean? That would go on in Aaron's office for an hour and a half.
Yeah, I wasn't involved in that.
It was difficult, and it's not fair. It was a long time ago, and there were a lot of things going on. But boy, I don't know about you guys, but I see this, and I go, oh, gosh, and I'll call her Brenda. Why did you made it to this last episode to give it 150 million, everything, and make us really regret what we have to do because it was the
bad. Sent her away for the summer.
Moment.
She could have come back. We only sent her away for the summer.
It was toxic, guys. It was toxic.
What really struck?
She rose and did great work, as we've talked about from all the Ray Randolph stories. And her in that last scene is she's the perfect Brenda. She looks great. She's aged. She's not a high school kid. She's a young woman. I want it. I want to be a star, and I want you. And there's a woman who knows what she wants.
I was really as a writer and as a fan now looking at viewer, I was amazed by a couple of things in this episode. One, how awful her wardrobe was. There were some scenes where it was so bad, like at the fair, at the
the carnival.
At the carnival, but it played up her innocence.
Yes,
and she was being played as a regular girl, and that was, I thought, it helped sell the character, even though if she didn't particularly look that great, and that was testament, I think, to the fact that she came to play at the end. So it's like all those times that she did here, she delivered. And that last scene, she sold it so beautifully. And I really loved the scene. I loved her talking about how her parents looked at Brandon and they'd never looked at her that way. And how she looked at them looking at him in the scene in the Walsh living room watching TV. It was beautifully shot. And she acted it beautifully. It was fabulous. What I was surprised by was Dylan didn't give it back, I don't think. And I mean, the lines weren't written for him to give it back. She says, I love you. And he doesn't say, I love you back. And when he says, I'll be applauding you from afar, I know I must have written that because a boyfriend said that to me. And it's like, I heard that in life and I wrote that down. But he didn't look at her the way she looked at him at that moment. And it made me sad for her. It was real. She felt real to me.
What about the last line? Did you write the last line, Jess? Give me something to come back to.
I must have. I'm thinking I must have, but I didn't like that one. I liked the other one. I didn't like it.
I love that.
We all love that line.
That's the line.
And that's what you wrote. Give me a reason to come back, and I think the reason.
Give me something to come back to.
Yeah, So
give me something to come back to, and it was what was great about it is it felt like a line from a war movie, and I liked it. That one doesn't resonate in my head that I typed that, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And there one of the great things about this experience, guys, and I really appreciate it, is there is no sense in any of this as I did that, you did that. This is all a we effort, and most of it's because I don't remember anything, but I think we all felt that this was a community effort. We were a team and making a television show, and we were working so hard and doing it all so quickly that we sometimes didn't even get to see the fruits of all of this. So it's really
feel it about you. And I also agree with you. I wonder what is about your opinion, Larry? Why do you think that Dylan was so? I mean, I have an
He's
answer,
right
but
about
I want to
that.
hear what you have to say. Why did he perform it like that? It did. She's given this, and he is like
And we've seen it.
Let me ask you a simple question. Did he ever say "I love you" to anybody other than Tony?
Yeah.
Maybe in season
Yeah,
6?
to her, right? He said, "I love her." He said that to Brenda. I'm sure. At some
we
point.
need
I don't know.
We need one of our experts.
Darren
to tell
Martin,
us.
or Sherry White. You got to ask.
Ariel, no.
But you know something. Looking at it now with that lens you're talking about, you know, I don't know. I don't think he wanted to let her down. Maybe he didn't want to impinge on this excitement for her. That you could play it that way. You know, you got to love somebody and set them free, kind of thing.
We are also leading up to the triangle of Dylan, Kelly, Brandon.
Right.
Exactly. And that's where we're going the following year.
I Choose Me. So we got a year to come. And
remember, he too had just, and now thinking about it and looking at what he's coming from, and props to the actor, he had just broken up with her father. And knew the whole time that he was doing something that wasn't 100% right. You don't necessarily do that to your inner circle.
Right.
And because he didn't know much about investment, he was able to think, well, we'll just go in and walk in. We don't need the apparatus. We don't need the paperwork or the LLC, which is these are basic business stuff.
Right.
So, you know, it made them look a little foolish in this, but maybe that had something to do with it. Because I think that one of the
kisses her
things,
really well, though. I mean, he kisses her big time. I mean, so the kiss maybe.
well, he's
she
Dylan
says, "Give me
McKay,
something to
and
come back to."
She's
So
Dylan McKay. He's Brenda
I mean,
Walsh.
like a guy. He says, "Yeah, come back for this, baby. Come back for the kiss."
You did see the dreams of Dylan McKay. I mean, he
I know.
likes women. You know, that was.
I know.
You know that.
But that's a big chink in the Dylan Brenda story. I hadn't really realized it. You know, have to kind of process it. So, Chuck, there's something else before we go further. Hold on to this one. There's a line there that was disturbing, and it said Dylan says to her a couple of lines before, "Well, why are you doing this now? You're not leaving right away." She says, "Oh, I'm leaving. There's a lot could happen this week that could change everything, and we never see this week. There's like a lost week in the saga." Right. Somehow that's the fan fiction of all times. What happened in that week?
Yeah.
Anyway, I just want to throw that out. Now,
in my mind, what would have happened, since he didn't know about them being ripped off or anything like that in the beginning of the week, there would have been a lot of sex.
Yeah. Well, he would have got. Well, maybe. Yeah. Yeah. Probably. He would have found out the next morning
that the next day for Dylan, he gets a call that your money's missing. And he now is freaking out about what is happening with him and
what happened because he had a partner.
Right.
And the partners they co-signed. The partner was allowed to take the money out. They would not have called him because the partner did it in their partnership.
Well, but Nat called him.
And we don't know. The one thing we don't know is we don't know if that was his bank originally, or they go to a new bank.
Right.
We don't know. They got the money from the Eckhouse world. They came to this place. And so what would have gone his suspicion is if he tried to call and find out where they were and they didn't answer their phone. And maybe his first thing was something bad happened to them. Not bad.
What I wondered in the watching of this, and I don't remember, is did we yet know how we were starting the next season in the calendar? Did we yet know if if we were going to start the next season with what happened that week, or whether we were going to come back and it would all have happened? Because we wound up doing a flashback. We wound up starting, right?
No, when I was first told about the double that we were going to do summer episodes, I was walking into Dan McDermott's office to say I want to do what I did on my summer vacation and do it with the same structure. Well, okay, so we'll do it now instead, and I'll write it with Larry. So we did it that way, but it was always intended, and Luke was clear. You picked me up. I found out I got no money. I haven't told anybody, and I've just been getting stoned and drunk in Baja California.
But did you know that already when we shot this?
Yes,
I think so.
Yes. Because
we
never got any time off.
Didn't David get the crabs from Ariel?
Yes, that did happen.
Yes, later on we referenced that. I'm glad we didn't mention that when Kari was there.
Our friend from Australia.
Later episode, that would have been terrible.
Our friend from Australia,
so terrific to see her. That was wonderful.
Larry, our friend from Australia, Peter Goldsworthy, kept putting crabs while Kari was with us in the chat. I just could not put that up.
What is this? Let's get Michelle's thing here. What is this thing, Michelle?
Okay, Michelle, sorry, yeah, it's been up for a while. Why did they decide to end the season with Dylan and Brenda? And if Shannon came back, would you have put Dylan back with Brenda? So there's a couple of good ones there.
Well, as Chuck just said, the plan was going to become the next triangle was going to be Kelly, Brandon, and Dylan. So even if she came back, which at that point she was not contracted to, no, she would have been someone else. I think would have been she would have been the wild card. I think. What do you think, Jess?
Oh yeah, but down the road.
Oh yeah, that's a big relationship.
Down the road,
I believe in that one.
But she was already involved with Charmed. I mean,
that was not going to happen.
This was not in the cards. It just that the camps weren't getting along so well. The camps had to have a divorce, and so it wasn't really thought of at that moment. That prospect. But seeing the second looks now, and especially from Divas to here. I really wish that we had seized that moment and been able to see that, well, maybe we got some wiggle room here and maybe it's in our interest. But, because the fact is that, it just really had deteriorated. You got to try to make your call times. And I actually know that one of our actors had also in the next year had a lot of trouble making call times, but not even remotely like how it was with Shannon in that force.
That I remember quite well.
Yeah, I mean, and to wait around to work as hard as we do, and our crews worked hard, and to have to wait around and do this and know was it because is it willful or because you're unhappy? It's because she's unhappy.
Yeah.
I think you look at that's what, and I said this, I would say it if Shannon was sitting right there. It's clear you look at these first 8 to 10 episodes, not the first 2, maybe not the first 2 or 3, but maybe from Little Fishes, after Little Fishes to Divas, just mostly she's not that happy. She exudes it. She's not doing this. And yet, then once that happens, and she knows she's leaving, and hello, I'm going to go back to the 1960s, she's perfect. So, it lockstep. I think we started writing for her again, and we were reticent as writers because from the management side, we didn't know what we would be getting.
Well, you got really beautiful stuff out of Shannon in those last scenes, in those moments. And
absolutely.
And I think, that's why fans wanted her to come back so badly. It is interesting. You said that you didn't think that it would happen, but you did leave that line hanging in there. Give me something to come back to. Which kind of indicates maybe this will go back down this road at some point. Was there ever a sense in your mind? No,
was calculated.
Never. We were using language to manipulate our audience to say, hey.
When I said it was calculated, exactly right. We were manipulating the audience.
Well, maybe you got to come and see.
And we want to keep the options open also in the storytelling of it because, we always had that. And it was only going to be a summer. It was a summer program. So, when we pick up in season 5, we do pick up the fact she's not coming back. That becomes a story.
And the person who asked the question about why did you end with this? Okay, so we had all these plots and they were ending. The first one closes is Steve and Celeste, and then closes. Was it Andrea and Jesse, or was it with the baby story, or was it
Brenda and Kelly?
And it moves into Donna and David, and that one closes, and then you got Brenda and Kelly,
Brandon,
Kelly, Brandon, and then you end with this. This was the one you had to end with. There was no
the part from Shannon.
Finite, and what you would be ending with Kelly and Brandon we played that ending. What are we going to tell our friends? We're not going to tell them anything. That's not the same as give me a reason to come back.
Right
now.
That's such a subliminal thing. Give me a reason, viewer. Come back. Viewer.
Don't leave
subliminal messaging.
Yeah. Dawn says Shannon was amazing. I know everyone said Kelly was beautiful, but to me, Brenda was so beautiful. Of course, we all agree that, and I think Shannon is a beautiful person today, and is always been an extremely talented actor. So we're talking about something from. Always like to remind everybody we're talking about 30 or 20 something years ago. Larry, you have said though in seasons after Chuck left that you did every once in a while throw out there. We reached out to Shannon.
Oh yeah, we had like I think in season 7, like Dylan. Somebody. Kelly goes out. She thinks she's meeting Dylan. Though I thought it was keeping Dylan alive. No, we've always kind of we find little messages. I think in the Unreal World there was a message that becomes part of the plot. Mm-hmm. Isn't that what Brenda comes in? She sends some letter or something like that. It was always because it's a touchstone. Again, the fans that invested in the relationship, and we knew what it would mean to them when we have little itzes like that.
Yeah,
and I think it, without criticizing anything that went on beyond 5, I think it's problematic with Brandon because if he shares life events, where's his mother? Where's his father? Where's his sister? We had this close knit family. And then they weren't together again, so it was always a hard one to get around.
There was a little bit that became believable, as she said, look at how my parents look at him.
Yeah.
And given that she's going off to make something of herself and going to a foreign country when it wasn't the same to fly from Los Angeles to London, it wasn't like going to San Francisco. She was going far away. So it helped to sell the believability why she wasn't back for holidays or whatever.
Right.
So that worked.
And people would visit her.
Yeah. It's like sending Jim and Cindy to Hong Kong. We sent them so far away.
We sent them to Hong Kong.
Yeah, Hong Kong.
All right, guys. Wow. We did 2 hours.
I just wanted to say that. Are you sure that our Christmas super deluxe party shouldn't be 3 hours?
I think at this point we just covered 2 hours here. I think Christmas party is definitely going in.
And we gave short shrift. It's really a terrific show. It's a great job everyone did.
Jeez Louise, yeah.
Some of Claire, we didn't even mention Kathleen's work in this.
Yes, I did in terms of the kissing.
The beginning,
I love her in this. I love her in the robe. I think it's the cutest shot. There we go. We got.
Oh my God!
There's another directing touch that Michael did. He hears the shower. He doesn't know what he's getting. I hear a shower.
Right.
Ooh, I see lingerie. Oh, there's a silhouette. Claire. It was good. It was think of the ways to do it, and maybe we wrote it. I'm sure we wrote it that way, but nonetheless staged so naturally that
a lot of male fantasy. We should wrap this, but
I was going to say the craziest thing about this is if you're a member of Patreon, me, Chuck, and Larry are going into a Zoom, and we're going to be talking about this even more now. So
grab me a pizza.
We will.
He's a slave driver. What can I say?
grab me a pizza and a joint right now.
I love you guys.
Thanks, Jess. Happy Hanukkah.
Happy Hanukkah.
Yeah, we gotta light the candles. Yeah, we gotta light the candles right now.
I did that already.
A very happy Hanukkah to everybody who's watching, and for those in Zoom, we will be be there in about 5 to 10 minutes. Give us a second here to get together, and don't forget next week, guys. This is going to be so much fun. The Christmas party. Jessica, are you around for the Christmas party? I don't know if I've ever invited you to that.
You didn't invite me. If you'd like to invite me,
yes, please.
For
the open house
for the Christmas show on this. No, you didn't.
Yeah. All right. Well, please come to the Christmas show next week. Yeah.
I'm happy to. I'm not mad at you, Chuck. Seriously, I'm happy to do it.
You wrote season 5. You're gonna have to look at it.
Yeah. All right. So thank you guys for watching this week, and we will see you next week for the big Christmas party. All right.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
Take care, guys.
All right. Bye-bye.